No one does. That's ownership.
I mean, there was a point in my life when I was concerned about everybody.
You're concerned about everybody as long as they sang to your tune, as long as they agree with everything you believe in.
My plate, I don't know what to do.
If I had not boxed Kody's stuff up out of my bedroom and moved it to the garage, he would have never gotten to it.
There's a moment on Special Forces that landed like a punch to the chest. Kody Brown, sitting in that stark military training environment, stripped of his hair gel ego, stripped of his grand entrances and his family patriarch theatrics, finally said words that stopped the room cold. I don't really have a relationship with my kids. No tears, no cracking voice, no urgency. Just a flat, hollow admission, like he was talking about losing keys, not losing children. And that is where everything shifts. Because what does it mean when a father, a man who built his whole identity on being the leader of a giant family, can sit there and admit he feels nothing for the very children who once cried into his arms, learned to walk holding his hands, and introduced him proudly as my dad? This is not a storyline. This is not a messy divorce arc. This is not TLC editing. This is a man saying the quiet part out loud. And today, we're going to talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives Daily, where we break down the reality behind the reality TV. The emotional truth, the silent power struggles, and the damage that doesn't always get camera time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay until the very end, because trust me, we're not just discussing what Kody said, we are discussing what he refused to say. This isn't a casual analysis. This isn't a recap. This is the part where we finally stop pretending the emotional abandonment in this family was accidental. Let's start. If you've watched Sister Wives for any length of time, and I mean really watched it, not just played it in the background, then you already know something very specific about Kody Brown. Accountability has never lived in his vocabulary. Not once. Not one season. Not one marriage conflict. Every time responsibility knocks, Kody finds a window to crawl out of. Let's walk through it, using only what the show itself gave us, not rumor, not fan theory. Season after season, tell-all after tell-all, the pattern stays the same. When Christine told him she was leaving and she said, plainly, that she felt lonely in the marriage, Kody didn't say, I should have shown up more, I should have listened. No, he said she was making decisions based on emotions, and that she was being dramatic. He turned her lived pain into her problem, not his accountability. Then there's Janelle, the woman who held that family together with duct tape, Tupperware, and sheer endurance. When Janelle looked him in the face and said, You're not present, you're not here for our kids, they don't feel you love them. Did Kody say, Let me do better? Where did I go wrong? How can I fix this? No. He immediately fired back with, They're disrespecting me. In Kody's world, love is not something you give. It's something you expect to receive, without earning it. Then there's the moment that still sits like glass in the throat of every viewer. Isabel's surgery. A teenage girl in chronic pain. A daughter asking for her father. A moment of need that cannot be faked or reshot. And Kody said, I can't go. There are COVID rules. Except, viewers watched him travel for other things. They watched him make exceptions for other people. Christine didn't have to narrate her heartbreak. We saw it form behind her eyes. But what did Kody do? He blamed Christine for making the situation emotional, as if love for your child should be clinical. And then the tell-all, the place where truth is supposed to settle. Every time the host asked, Do you understand why they're hurt? Kody didn't reflect. He reacted. He said, They ganged up on me. They chose sides. Everyone turned on me. It is the same script every time. Deflect. Redirect. Blame. Become the injured party. Because accountability requires introspection, and introspection threatens the entire myth he built around himself. The leader. The patriarch. The one in control.
If he admits fault even once, the entire structure of his authority cracks.
So he does what he always does. He chooses control over connection, pride over healing, image over love. And the children, the wives, the family pay for it every time. And that's why the Special Forces admission mattered so much. Because it wasn't new. It was simply the first time he said out loud what his behavior has been saying for years. But we're not done. Because the next part, the tears, the emotions, the performance, that's where the story changes. There's something that happens with Kody when the walls start to close in, when the conversation stops being comfortable, when someone finally says, "You hurt me." Suddenly, the tears come. Not the quiet, grounded kind. Not the kind that comes from reflection or remorse. No. Kody gives us performative breaking down, chest heaving, voice cracking, hands in his hair, but always at the exact moment when the accountability is pointed at him. It's a pattern we've seen for years. Look at the tell-all moments. Whenever the host asks something like, "Do you understand why Gabe and Garrison feel abandoned?" Kody will burst into emotion. He'll clench his jaw, shake his head, squeeze out tears, and then redirect. "They pushed me out. They disrespected me. They didn't honor me as their father." Notice what happens there. The tears aren't for the kids. The tears are for himself. They function like a smoke bomb, a dramatic distraction that shifts the narrative from "I caused pain" to "I am the one who is suffering." We saw the same dynamic with Christine. When Christine told him she needed partnership, romance, effort, when she said she felt invisible, when she said she cried alone in that marriage, Kody's emotional reaction wasn't, "I didn't realize how deeply I hurt you." It was, "I was betrayed. You made me look bad." His tears weren't grief for the marriage. They were grief for losing control of the story. And then there's the conversation with Janelle, the one that viewers still replay because it was such a clear moment of emotional inversion. Janelle said, "Our kids don't feel loved by you." And Kody exploded. He didn't cry because his children were hurting. He cried because someone pointed out that they were. His tears were a defense mechanism, not a response to empathy. Because empathy requires understanding the other person's pain. Kody's emotional displays always circle back to, "Here's how I was wronged." And that is the difference. Emotional performance, loud, dramatic, timing aligned with being confronted, ends with blame being redirected outward. Emotional responsibility, quiet, steady, grounded in actually listening, leads to change, repair, and accountability. Kody has mastered the first. He has almost never shown the second. His tears do not heal, they deflect. His crying does not connect. It shields him from accountability. His emotional expression is not about love. It is about maintaining control of how he is perceived. And that is why the children are distant. They didn't lose a father. They lost the illusion of one. Next, we go deeper, because when it comes to the children, the hurt is not theoretical. It is documented, on camera, year after year. What happened between Kody and his children didn't collapse overnight. It was small choices, repeated, until the distance became normal. And by the time we got to Special Forces, when he said out loud that he doesn't feel that bond anymore, the audience wasn't shocked, because we had already watched that distance happen in real time. The most painful example is Gabe and Garrison. These were boys who used to follow their dad everywhere. They looked up to him. They wanted his approval. But when the family hit the pandemic years, Kody chose control over connection. He created rules no one else could question. If the boys disagreed, he didn't meet them in conversation or compassion. He treated it as defiance. He made their feelings about safety, independence, and adulthood into a personal disrespect. By the time holidays came, the boys stopped calling, and Kody didn't call either. We saw Gabe cry on camera talking about his dad forgetting his birthday. That wasn't just a missed phone call. That was a son realizing the relationship had shifted, and he was the only one still reaching out. No theatrics, just heartbreak. And then there's Garrison, a young man who simply asked for equal treatment among siblings, the kind of baseline fairness most parents consider automatic. But for Kody, fairness became a threat. Anytime someone asked for emotional presence, it was treated as an attack. So Garrison stopped trying. It's one of the clearest patterns in the show. When you set a boundary with Kody, he calls it rejection. When you ask for connection, he calls it disrespect. The most defining fracture, though, was with Isabel. Her scoliosis surgery was not optional. It wasn't cosmetic. Her spine was curving. She was in pain. Christine asked him to be there. Isabel asked him to be there. He said no. He said the travel risk was too high. But then he spent the season at Robin's house, going to stores, working on house projects, moving freely, while Christine and Isabel were in a hospital across the country. The surgery happened. The recovery was hard. Her mom held her hand. Her dad stayed home. We don't need narration to understand what that does to a child. And when we got to Special Forces and Kody said that he doesn't feel emotionally connected to some of his kids anymore, it didn't come as a revelation. It was the result. It was the sum of every missed call, every redirected argument, every moment where control mattered more than care. The show has documented a father who does not know how to stay present when presence requires accountability. And that's what landed him exactly where he is now. Children who are still living, still growing, still creating lives, just without him. They didn't walk away. He let go first. The structure of the Brown family was always uneven, no matter how many times Kody said the word equal. The show made that clear without needing dramatic music or narration. Legally, Kody was only married to one woman at a time. First, that was Mary. Then he divorced Mary to become legally married to Robin. The others, Janelle and Christine, were spiritually married only. No legal status, no shared financial protections, no formal rights. What that created was a system where Kody's loyalty had a center of gravity, the household with the marriage license, and it showed. When the family lived in Vegas, the wives talked about trying to make decisions together. But when Robin entered the family, it became clear that her home was where the emotional energy went. The kids saw it, the wives felt it, the cameras captured it. In a polygamous setup without legal equality, the husband becomes the gatekeeper of attention, time, security, and emotional acknowledgement. He decides where holidays are spent. He decides whose needs are prioritized. He decides whose concerns are reasonable and whose are drama. And because the structure puts him at the center, there was no real accountability when he withdrew. If Christine asked for partnership, it was framed as her being impatient or emotional. If Janelle asked for shared financial planning, it became an argument instead of a conversation. If the older children asked why he wasn't around, he said they were being disrespectful. When a system is built so that one person holds the emotional and practical power, that person never has to change. They don't have to reflect. They don't have to repair. They don't have to take responsibility. And Kody didn't. Over time, the imbalance didn't just affect the wives. It shaped the children's experience of their father. They saw who he chose. They saw who got effort and who got excuses. They watched their mothers shoulder every emotional heavy lift, while he described himself as the one being pushed out. The family culture didn't create Kody's behavior, but it gave him a structure where emotional neglect didn't have consequences, until the day everyone finally stopped waiting for him to show up. When Kody sat in that Special Forces interview room, the tone was serious. No wives, no cameras angled to flatter him, no familiar living room where he could raise his voice and control the narrative. Just silence, instructors watching, and his own words. He said he was finally ready to admit he'd made mistakes. He said he had failed as a father and husband. He used the word wrong. And on paper, that should have been a breakthrough. This should have been the moment viewers had been waiting for. The moment where he drops the defensiveness, the blaming, the constant reframing of everyone else's emotions as misunderstandings. But the longer he talked, the more obvious it became. He was not apologizing. He was explaining, justifying, contextualizing himself into sympathy. The sentences began to twist into familiar shapes. He felt pushed out. He felt unwanted. He tried harder than anyone realized. The family didn't listen. The kids weren't fair. The wives made him the bad guy. The breakup of the family was something done to him, not something he participated in. This wasn't accountability. It was a monologue about how hurt he feels by the consequences of his own choices. We've seen this exact pattern on TLC. When Christine told him she was done, he said she was betraying the family. When Janelle asked for equal partnership, he said she was disrespecting him. When Gabe cried because his dad forgot his birthday, Kody didn't apologize. He said he thought Gabe didn't want to talk to him. The blame always bends away from him. So when he said on Special Forces that he now understands he might have caused the estrangement, it rang hollow, because there was no action attached to it. No phone calls to reconnect, no rebuilding days. No accountability conversations, no ownership of specific choices. Just, I feel bad, and then silence. Even the instructors seemed to sense it. They didn't respond with support or empathy. They sat still, unimpressed. Because to them, people who know what actual accountability looks like, it was clear. Kody wasn't grieving the loss of his relationships. He was grieving the loss of control over the narrative. On Sister Wives, he always had room to turn a breakdown into a speech, to get loud, to gesture, to tell the audience who was misunderstanding him. On Special Forces, he didn't have that stage. So his admission sat there, thin, unfinished, revealing everything without him realizing it. He wants to be seen as someone who means well, someone who tried but was overwhelmed, someone who would have been a great father if only circumstances were different. But circumstances didn't make these choices. He did. And the children who are now distant didn't walk away from him because they didn't care. They walked away because they finally recognized that he already had. If Kody were genuinely ready to fix anything, the steps wouldn't be mysterious or dramatic. They would be small, steady, and uncomfortable. They would require him to stop narrating why he feels misunderstood and start acknowledging the very real harm that happened on his watch. It would look like calling Gabe and saying, "I hurt you. I dismissed your feelings. I'm sorry." Not explaining the pandemic plans, not circling back to how stressed he was, just the apology itself. Clean and without a defense attached. It would look like showing up for Garrison and asking what he needs, instead of telling him what respect should look like. It would look like calling Isabel and saying he regrets not being there for her surgery, and then letting her talk. Really talk. Not listening just long enough to respond, listening long enough to understand. It would look like acknowledging that the family didn't just fall apart around him. He made choices, and those choices had consequences. And the most important part of accountability isn't saying any of this one time on camera. It's repeating the repair in everyday life, showing up when it's inconvenient, calling even when the call will be awkward, learning to sit with discomfort instead of reacting with anger or sadness to get sympathy. We haven't seen any of that happen. Not in interviews, not in social media updates, not in behind-the-scenes comments, not on the show. What we have seen is distance becoming routine, excuses becoming narratives, and grief being used as a shield. Accountability would mean stepping back into the relationships he abandoned, slowly, quietly, consistently. Right now, the silence tells the truth louder than anything he says. The hardest part of all this isn't Kody's interviews. It isn't his speeches. It isn't even the contradictions that pile up from Sister Wives to Special Forces. It's the kids. The kids who grew up in a home built on the idea that family is everything, that unity is sacred, that love multiplies instead of divides. They believed that. They lived that. They defended that publicly when the world mocked their family. They never asked for perfection. They asked for time, presence, effort, care. And what they learned, slowly and painfully, is that love doesn't mean much when it's conditional on obedience. They learned that asking for emotional closeness can get turned into conflict. They learned that a father can sit just a few miles away and feel like a stranger. The cost of emotional abandonment isn't loud, it's quiet. It lives in birthdays that pass without calls. It lives in medical appointments where only one parent shows up. It lives in the silence after someone says, "I miss my dad," and gets no reply. When Kody said he doesn't feel a bond with some of his children anymore, the audience didn't gasp. We just exhaled, because he finally said the thing his actions had been saying for years. And the saddest part is that the bond isn't gone because it was impossible to maintain. It's gone because maintaining it required effort, and effort required humility. So now the question is yours. Do you believe Kody is feeling real remorse, real grief, real responsibility? Or was Special Forces just another place to perform pain instead of repair it? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you saw. Tell me what moment stood out to you most. And if you haven't yet, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and stay with us here at TLC's Sister Wives Daily. We're not just recapping episodes, we're following the emotional truth that these families live with long after the cameras go dark. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.